company should open up for all their employees to go travel anywhere. But it's important to have a conversation with your colleagues, with your employees, and to somehow pave the way forward as to what kind of flexibility you should be offering as an employer.
Yeah, I mean, companies will definitely feel the effect of, because it's a candidates market, right? And particularly within the tech field, and I think recruiters already know how difficult it may be to attract the right talents, and that it might not always be about like the free coffee or the ping pong tables, but something more profound that people value even more, and especially now when people had a sense of what that freedom can feel like, and obviously that takes a different type of infrastructure, and that takes, leaders have to step up in a different way in order to kind of meet those kind of needs when you have people working not only from an office, but from different locations. But it's, I feel like companies might not even have a choice moving forward if they want to keep the best talents. Do you have any thoughts there, Sebastian?
Not really my field of expertise fully, but yeah, I do actually. But I think it's a lot about also the definitions, and like we're defining this as a new way of working, but is it really a new way of working when we're doing the same type of work? I mean, just because we're not sitting at the office and calling a customer, or we're sitting at home doing the same thing, is that a new way of working, or is it just a new location we're working at? And I think that, I mean, we have to. It goes both ways. Companies have to need to look at their capabilities and their routine and their organizational structure, how they're built, and also look into the core principles about, like, because the one part that could be a risk from the other side is that you're starting to get excluded. You're creating two teams, and how do you create this whole like team spirit being in the same company? And I know it's going to come later on also, but we're talking about employees who've never met their colleagues during the pandemic, and how do you work around that? Um, Again, I agree a lot with Emelie said, and I agree with both of you. And I just think that we just have to open up the possibility that the office is not the only workplace where we're actually conducting our work at nowadays. And this goes for a lot of types of work, not just only the traditional or the typical computer gigs or computer works. It's a lot of stuff, and I mean, we've been working in the consultancy industry for a while, and their remote work has been a standard for longer than the pandemic has been going on. So we know that the actual way you can actually do that type of work. Now it's just about finding a way of incorporating that into the companies. And there, where you say it's a big responsibility on leaders and on the talent. On the other hand, we're also opening up, looking in a city like Stockholm, where living is not only expensive, it's also hard to get into, to find an apartment or a place to live in Stockholm. And if you open up the possibility for remote work, you also open up the possibility for recruiting in another city, in another country, opening up the possibilities for new way of attracting talent that wasn't really a possibility before. So it comes with a lot of benefits, of course, and it's a the best, or what I think is most like intriguing in this whole question is that nobody really knows, and that's also something that is so intriguing with this whole discussion. That, I mean, we'll see 10 years from now.
Yeah, we're just guessing, right? We're just putting up the finger and see where what we might think is true, but we actually don't know fully. But in terms of desk hunters, and you're working towards creating a solution for people that want to be more flexible. What problem does Desk Hunter want to solve, and what do you believe the future role of the office will look like?
Oh, here comes the biggest guest of the day. Now, guest of the day. No, but what we're aiming for, or looking at, and are seeing is to take down the barriers of what I was saying earlier. To plan to work somewhere else, It happened to me yesterday with an old friend of mine from school. Asked me, "Can I sit and work at your co-working space that I'm still running?" Also, yeah, of course. Just come by 8 o'clock tomorrow or 9 o'clock tomorrow, and it's all good. So it's not about so much the planned work or remote work that we're trying to solve. It's more about when you have that lunch meeting at 1 or 12 o'clock, and then you have the next meeting at 3 o'clock in the same part of town. Oh, I need somewhere to work. Just jump in and do some work. The taking away the hard or like the barriers of remote work, and when you're where you're at right now at that spot, that's what we're trying to. I mean, if it's one big crucial problem, or if you want to see in a problem or solution where desk hunters is going to fill that void, is right there. Just making it easier for people who are not at their office or at their home or at their primary workstation to find a way to do some work. If that's 8 hours, if that's 4 hours, if that's 30 minutes, that's where desk hunters comes in. And just being a part of a larger ecosystem, because we're not aiming to become the global, or I'm saying that right now at least, we're not aiming to become the global co-working space or like connect all the dots. It's more just becoming one solution into the whole working life, basically, where you can find work, build a community around it, and find find a way to break the barriers of, okay, it's a remote work. And on the other part then, for where we have the space owners, we're also seeing that with the forced remote work that we had during the pandemic, a lot of cafes have a lot of people in there drinking one cup of coffee and then forcing themselves to buy something just to buy something to be able to sit there. And this is also something to create an easier way for space owners to say, oh, if it's a cafe, if it's a restaurant, if it's a co-working space, or if it's just an office that has excess capacity, um, just to make it easier for them to be like opening up their spaces, reusing and finding if it's an income or just some energy. Like we say here in Sweden, new water in Östersjön, just to create some sort of creativity into the whole, or just some sort of, what should we say, some creativity or whatever, live stream into their space, and that's what we're trying to solve.
It's interesting because remote, I think when a lot of people think about remote work, they think about maybe even the most drastic idea of what remote work can look like, or traveling the world, or like moving very intensely. But usually, or for the most part, it's that kind of flexibility that people are looking for, to have the flexibility of like sitting in their office in the morning and then jumping into a cafe because they have a meeting on the other side of town. So it makes sense to like go there a little earlier to kind of have that autonomy over your workday. And I love that you're creating a solution for that, because I think that's what a lot of people are looking for when they kind of scheduling like their work days. And cafes are, I mean, I don't think cafes owners are that happy with the fact that even traveling, like I see a lot of signs like, don't even think about putting your computer on this table. Like if you're gonna sit here, you'll drink a coffee and like no computer. So there's definitely, yeah, that they're unofficially used as co-working spaces when they're not. So
and I think it's really interesting also when you think about it, because of course the three of us, we've been working like this for a long time. I don't know how long I've been sitting at cafes and hotel lobbies and so on with my computer, but because there haven't been that many of us or too many of us, you've kind of gone under the radar. So it's worked, it's been okay. But now all of a sudden we see this whole revolution where almost, well, I think it's like 50% of all Swedes have been able to work remotely during the pandemic. And if all of those people all of a sudden go into the same hotel lobby or their favorite cafe, then of course that business isn't going to be working anymore if people are just sitting there buying a coffee, like Sebastian is saying. So this need, it existed already a few years ago, but now it's becoming so obvious that we really do need better solutions as to where and how and, well, where we can work from, and to have a solution that makes it okay for both the person that's working, for the company you're working from, when it comes to like secure, well, that you can come on to the internet with like secure connections and so on. And also, of course, for the business owner, so that they can still make a living and not only have people sitting around buying the cheapest cup of coffee and occupying a seat all day. So, of course, we need better solutions.
what we're also looking into, we're not going to get stuck into this, but what we're also looking into is also the possibility of opening up spaces that today would not want to or even have the idea of. I mean, we have a bookshop as that's going to be in the beta, just to show that you can have I mean, only if you have excess space, that's enough. All you need, and they're of the name Desk Hunters. One part is all you need is a desk. I mean, and it doesn't have to be a office desk. It can be any type of desk where you can sit down, internet connection. We have it in our phones basically. So this is a big thing that we're talking about. How can we make it easier to quickly come in, quickly go out, and just make a smooth and simple solution, which is not that simple because it brings up a lot of variables to this, and of course, like you're saying, finding a way so it's okay. Also, making this contract between the buyer and the seller, or in this case, then the person going into a space and the one sitting there, that it's okay that we can sit down. And I mean, with the digital tools, not only what we're doing now, but also putting on stuff as uh, EID solutions so that the space owner can know that this person is verified by identification system is stuff that we're talking about to make it more the acceptance level higher to let other people, strangers, into your space.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the release of this. It's going to be very exciting. I was thinking about like the company perspective, and I wanted to ask you, Emelie, because we talked about like what talent wants, and we can see patterns of like, people moving and values have shifted. But in terms of companies and allowing more flexible work, do you like what is your sense there? Do you think there's a potential resistance, and where does that resistance lies?
I mean, I think that almost every company today is aware of the fact that a lot of things have changed and that employees do want some sort of flexibility going forward. But I think that, like, for every individual company, you also need to have that discussion, sit down and think about what kind of flexibility can we offer? What will it look like? What do the employees want? Because, of course, some people will want to go to the office every day still, whereas others might want to go travel somewhere. So do we need to make a solution that's the same for everyone that's employed by us, or will it be different for each individual? But how will we be able to manage different types of contracts and setups with every single person at a company, especially at a bigger company? So I do know that companies are discussing this at the moment, that management teams are discussing ways forward and trying things out. But as you were just saying before, Sophia, no one actually knows exactly what the future will look like. And I think that what's really important right now as a leader and as a company is to be open to the fact that they don't know either, maybe exactly what the policy is going to be looking like in the next year or in the next couple of months even. But a lot of companies right now are experimenting with letting their employees work away from the office 2 to 3 days a week and then being at the office 2 to 3 days a week. And when I've been speaking to different government organizations, to private organizations and so on, I do feel that that is like the standard type of agreement and policy that people are putting across right now. But I also think it's important to think about the fact that it doesn't just have to do with the space you're sitting in, because as Sebastian was saying, it's not just about where you work from, but also how you work, and that we need to move into a different way of thinking, of having more digital first approaches with open documents so that everyone can work on the same document at the same time, and having open file sharing systems, incorporating the fact that you have chats where you can speak with people in a leisurely way, even when you're not sitting at the same desk and so on. So it's more about like the whole organizational structure of building a remote company. It's not just about where you're sitting. You need to make like the corporate culture and the whole like routine for work adapt as well to this new hybrid way of working.
Do you feel like companies, this is a very general question, so but do you feel like companies in general are ready to take that step, or do you feel like it's
No, but I do feel that they are, to be honest. I don't think that they felt themselves that they were ready 2 years ago, but because so many people have been experimenting, as you put it, with working remotely during the pandemic, they've seen that, okay, the tech might be there. And maybe it's not the technical solutions that are the biggest obstacle right now. It's rather like the corporate culture, as I was saying. And I do think the companies are ready to take this step, but it comes down again to the fact that management teams and employees need to sit down together, if possible, and try to pave the way forward that works best for their specific company.
I like the one thing there. What I think is, I mean, what my own thoughts about having Monday, Tuesday at the office, and then half of Wednesday, and then being away from the office the other parts of the week. I mean, I can feel that that's a wouldn't say the optimal solution, but on the other hand, that what I do, I'm a firm believer of, and what we just spoke about also that nobody knows is it has to start somewhere, and that I think is a good sign that companies are actually trying now, and governments as well are trying now. And I mean, it's all about trial and error. I mean, we'll see. This is my thoughts and my ideas is saying that just structuring up Monday, Tuesday away from work, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at work or at the office. Um, I mean, for me, that's probably not how I would do it. But on the other hand, it's good that we're seeing this shift now. People are trying, and I mean, before pre the pandemic, everybody it was a lot of talk about when do people work. I mean, is are we killing now the 9 to 5 type, or the idea of not working 9 to 5? Uh, and now it's becoming more a shift of where do we actually work, and I think it's you have to come like you said there, you have to combine them both, and seeing like creating an optimal solution. We The freedom and flexibility does work. It's just about maybe doing it another way. Is it working 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours or 6 hours, or is it about other business goals and business objectives that we have to start looking upon? But it's good. The best thing that we're seeing right now is that we're actually trying, and that's the only way to move forward. Trial and error all the time, and reiterate this process until till the companies have their best solution that fits their company.
Definitely, definitely, and it's, as we've all been saying, it's an experiment for all of us, and all the companies that are facing this paradigm shift and trying to figure out what the next step is. And I think I usually refer to it as an identity crisis, that a lot of companies are so stuck with the way they used to do it. So they're like, oh, but we're always been doing it this way, so why would we change it? But now we've been kind of forced into the change, and have no choice but to build something new. But what do you think is the biggest roadblock or the biggest obstacles when giving employees more autonomy over their workdays? Is it the cultural part? Is it a leadership part? Or is it? Do you have any thoughts there?
I'll let the Swedish nomads go first. She's the professional here.
No, but I mean, of course, I'd say it is a cultural block. I mean, some people aren't open to it. You need to get everyone on board, make everyone feel comfortable with working this way, and also with allowing some people to do it and some people not to do it, and then finding like a good dynamic where teams still work, regardless of if some are on site and some are online. But of course, it's a leadership thing. A lot of leaders are used to being able to see their employees every day, speak with them, know that they are doing their work because they are sitting at their desks. Although, of course, they wouldn't really know just because of their physical location, but still they've had that feeling. So it's about trusting your employees, and of course also your employees trusting the leaders and making that work. So, I mean, there are of course obstacles around all of this, but I do think that what everyone recognized at this time is that you can't just ignore that this is a question that's up right now, and that you need to somehow try to navigate, find new ways forward, and make a solution that's workable for the place you're at. And so I think, I mean, having open discussions, trying stuff out, as Sebastian was saying. You don't need to say that this is how we're going to be doing it for the next year. Rather saying that, okay, we don't know either. We're going to test this together with you. Let's evaluate it. Let's try again. But in the end of the day, of course, I mean, we all want the same thing. We want to feel good at work. We want to do good work. And we want, of course, our employees to feel good and the other way around. So in the end, if we're just open, if we try to find different ways forward, and then we really utilize the technology that's out there and different methods, as I was saying, like working in similar documents, not being so dependent on sitting in the same place at the same time with the same people in a team, then we can make this work. But how the solution is going to look for different people, well, you need to try, and that's how you find a way forward.
It's great.
Yeah.
I've to just step in there. I think this is probably the question that we know least about, also because we've been. I heard you talk, Emelie, a couple of weeks ago, and you said it so well when you said we've been forced into a remote work. So the problem with that, I think, for a lot of organizations who are not used to that, is that they don't think about what they're doing, and in that moment, in these 2 years, it's become a new normal. Yes, of working from home, that we're going to wake up, make some coffee, do this, do that, write to somebody on Slack, but we're not actually like reflecting about how is our work style. Oh, it sucks that we can't meet the people, or oh, how nice it is that I'm sitting at home. I don't need to have to dress up, or I'll just put on the top part because I'm only going to show this part of my clothes, or my body. But I think that this is where we're going to start seeing the challenges right now, when we're starting seeing the people are going back to work. And now when you're at 6 months from now, when people are starting reflecting also, oh, but it was kind of nice being at home, or no, it's so nice to be back at work. The one thing that what I mean, where I can see the big obstacle is communication more than anything. About just talking right by the coffee machine about anything, and talking in the corridors, the stuff that we talk about as pros for working at a co-working space, or pros for an office in general. That part of human connection has been lost a little bit, but we've found ways to, like we're talking right now, to go to work around it, and it's been more and more socially accepted to have this type of conversation. But it's just finding a way to making it more natural, a asynchronic way of communication, but to still make that natural. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of, both for the employees and the employers, or like the business. And how do you do it's going to be very interesting, to say the least, to see what happens. And that's $1 million question. And if you have the answer to that, I mean, it's going to be good. But I also think, what just to spit in the last part, is that also what I've realized is that trying to have a creative pitch, or a creative workshop, even with the digital solutions as Miro or Google Meets or Hangouts or wherever, it's still been really hard to I've found it really hard that types of work have been different, like has had its challenges. To be creative in a meeting has been really hard doing it remotely, because there's something when you can like stand in front of a whiteboard, and then call me old fashioned, but it's something standing by a whiteboard that I've found that's been a challenge. But then other parts of having just a quick recap has been awesome. It's been amazing. 5-10 minutes, go up, where are we at, take notes, and then continue. That's been great. So I think we also have to find what really works. Where should we work in the same room, and where should we not work in the same room, to create a more efficient but also a better lifestyle, and a better working lifestyle in that matter.
Yes. Yeah, because remote doesn't mean always remote. So we definitely benefit from that human interaction. And that's actually, I had an interview last week where they asked me like, oh, but what about like the sense of belonging? And I said that, well, it's still like, how does that come natural? And I said, it doesn't really, like, you still have to, I mean, we do try to begin every meeting with, actually connecting to one another, instead of like instantly diving into the work parts. So we still have a sense of like, hey, like, who are you behind whatever you have going on in your work right now? But it's still a challenge that, like, I'm working on as well, to find more natural ways of connecting even from afar. But I do think that the human connection, and especially just in terms of like getting to know your coworkers and like the workshop. Obviously, it's possible to do workshops remotely as well, but there's one thing doesn't have to take away the other. That's what I was gonna say. So we're running out of time. Time flies here. It's a topic we could talk about for hours and hours, but I just wanted to say, ask one last question. In terms of, we kind of touched on it before, but I'm interested to know, if you're like, if anything was possible in the world, what do you think the new definition of work would look like? What do you think? How is work gonna look like in 10 or 20 years from now?
In like an ideal world, I think that we'll all work with something that we find true meaning with, that we are, well, proud of maybe even, and that we don't spend 8 hours per day working. Maybe we're okay working 5 or 6 hours, but we'll be so efficient and we'll use technology to automate different types of tasks, so we can just focus on like the really value adding tasks when we are in fact working. And then that way, work will of course be essential to what we do, but we'll have so much more time to spend on our free time, on our time outside of work, that I think that we'll all be happier and healthier people, while at the same time also creating healthier companies that deliver probably better results because the people working there are happier.
Good answer.
So how do I top that? No, but I'm what to just spin off and then not say the same words. Then I would say basically that it's tailored for what the individuals. I mean, and that's something I feel that we're seeing right now with technology, is that we're creating a way of actually doing what we want to do, work with, and that's just to spin off from what Emelie was saying, that and that's a big word right there that I like also. That's proud, being proud of your work, and so that's to make it a shorter answer. I'll just say, to make an individual and a working situation that fits you as a human being and what you want, the life you want to live. And that's something that I think is the one of the most positive effects of the technology right now, that it's creating these opportunities for people to be who they are. We're seeing it everywhere, from social media to even in gaming and everywhere, and that's something that I really do believe that's the ideal work situation for a person.
I love that, and I love that technology doesn't always have to be, separating people. We can utilize it in a way that connects people. Because I think after the pandemic, that was the first impression that we got of like how we can use technology in order to work more efficiently. And I think a lot of people have the idea of like, oh, technology is just like keeps people like third row away from each other, but actually there are ways to utilize it in order to make us feel even more connected. Okay. We're running out of time, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing this space with me and sharing your knowledge in terms of future work and solutions moving forward, and sharing your insights in terms of work. And we're actually going to have a new live stream the 7th of April with H&M, Julie Despars, who's going to speak about AI and data and how H&M are utilizing it in order to create more efficient recruitment processes. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day, Emelie, in the Swedish mountains, and Sebastian in the office space. And I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Thank you so much, Sophia.
Thank you so much. Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.